Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another one of our podcasts from the Future and the Hope Ministries. We have an opportunity here to share some of the things that we're seeing in our work with clients, in our community with you, and we sincerely hope it's helpful to you. I'm Tad Bodeman. I'm a licensed therapist. My focus and practice is on marriage and family therapy. And Rich Cozart is joining me today. Dr. Rich Cozart is a licensed psychology counselor now. Is that how we'd say it, Rich?
The best way, Tad, would be to say that I am on my way to licensure, but I do have my degrees in psychology and counseling.
Yeah,
yes.
You've been working in for many years now, and been teaching us therapists how to do this work with clients for a long time, and working with clients on your own for a long time as well. So welcome, Rich, and glad to spend this afternoon with you. I want to start kind of with a new topic, and that's this. I know when you and I talk, we're seeing in our clientele and just kind of in our own lives and around us, having this experience of increased irritability. Finding ourselves frustrated at things that perhaps at one point in time, maybe last year, we wouldn't have felt as frustrated about, and struggling with what to do with that increased level of irritability. So I guess the first question, Rich, as we get started is kind of, why are we experiencing these increased levels of irritability and frustration in our lives at this point in time?
Yeah, I think, Tad, with the COVID and all the ripple effects, socially, financially, vocationally, even in terms of expressions of worship and social standards, etc., we're in a new world, and that produces stressors that entails adjustment. And as human beings, we want predictability. We want peaceableness in our own personal lives and with others. And so the fact that many of us have been in lockdown and then socially isolated, and then when we do go out, we have these masks that we put over half of our face. And then we're distant even as we're out. And then hearing over the news the tragedies that have taken place from COVID, we're basically being bombarded in so many different ways, on so many different levels, and that produces irritability and, I would say, short fuses with other people.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is, with so much uncertainty and really having to adjust the way we're living our lives, the way we're interacting relationally with people, all of this uncertainty and change, and quite frankly, a sense of a lack of safety is consuming an awful lot of our emotional energy.
Yes.
So we have less to give to these moments that are frustrating or causing irritation.
Yeah, I would think normally we would have that emotional tank full enough to interact in a socially acceptable fashion with people, and we have higher tolerance when we have these, not as many stressors. But when we pile all these on, not only in our lives, but the people that are in our immediate family, or the people we're working with, the people we are attempting to worship with, people in public places, there is much more of a tendency for us to become short with people, perhaps to argue with people, to maybe lose our temper and actually express anger. It's because I think, by and large, of just this mounting stress that we're all feeling.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, becoming attuned to what's actually happening for us is a first step to, making some helpful adjustments in our lives that are helpful to us. Dr. Kozar, did you think about it? What are some of the things that are happening when we're beginning and when we're experiencing this irritability? What's going on for us?
Sure. I would say, first of all, we want to be mindful of what's going on. We can also call this sort of a psychoeducational approach. And the more mindful or educated we are, the less inclined we are to overreact, when something happens. So as we conduct ourselves throughout the day, we might make ourselves more aware. Okay, I am going to have a shorter fuse today. I am going to tend to be irritated today. I've got to take special care of myself because of this multitude of stressors and triggers that are taking place. And so, of course, we call that in counseling mindfulness. And mindfulness is basically kind of backing up and observing the way we think, observing the way we feel and react to things, rather than being caught up in the experience and caught up in the emotion. So that would be the first thing I would say is backing up and looking at the things that are happening, the patterns, the triggers, and saying, okay, I'm going to prepare myself for these things. And I don't want to be sort of taken out with the tide of irritation and then overreacting and doing things that I perhaps might later regret.
Yeah, I love this idea of becoming aware and attuned to what are the triggers that you're experiencing. And I think one of the areas that can be really helpful in that mindfulness is to be thinking about, often when we feel irritable, one of the underlying causes often is that there's some unmet expectation that you're experiencing in the moment. Sometimes these are conscious expectations or unconscious, but that using your frustration, the way you described it, to actually pause and think about, are there some unmet expectations that I was aware about or not, but I'm feeling, right now the effects of them being unmet, and developing that awareness. I love that, Rich. And
Yeah.
So where we develop and we do this work and we're starting to become attuned to what's going on for us in the moment, what are some helpful ways to respond in that moment to our irritability, to our frustration?
I would say after mindfulness would be to remain emotionally regulated. Emotionally regulated, meaning I'm not going to overreact in terms of negative emotions, which would be fear, anger, outbursts, emotional, verbal, even physical conflict with other people. I am going to rather be guided by rational thinking, healthy rational thinking, rather than emotion dysregulation. I've spoken with people who have said that they have to spend hours and hours on Zoom meetings, let's say, at home.
Yeah.
And while they're on these Zoom meetings, the children who are unable to go to school are running around the house. They're having problems. They have cabin fever. And then,
Then the dogs are barking at the door.
the dogs are barking at the door and all of those things. So the tendency, at least for me, is to, okay, why can't you kids behave? Why can't those pets remain quiet? Why do I have to be on these Zoom meetings for hours on end, perhaps with my employer or whoever else? And so it takes this regulation of our emotion to say, no, wait a minute, I've got to be careful about it, the way I react to my kids or my pets or my employer or these other people, because it's probably only going to result in further conflict and further problems for me.
Yeah. Yeah, this idea that when we act out that frustration, that irritation, we actually push away the very thing we want, not draw it closer.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that idea. And some things that can be helpful in that is to realize, well, what's the alternative to acting out these emotions? And the alternative is to report their presence and express what you want, which actually allows the person that you're irritated or frustrated with to actually move towards you and move towards what you want, right? Rather than push them away. And and that takes that emotional regulation in order to be that intentional. Yeah.
Yes. No, I agree. And of course, we're not advocating that people stuff their emotions or deny their emotions. That's very unhealthy. And of course, we believe as a Christian counseling center that God gave us emotions for very good reasons, but they can be destructive.
Yeah.
So we want emotions to be, as you say, acknowledged and harnessed and used for positive and healthy things rather than for things that are going to be counterproductive for us.
Yeah. Well, excellent, Rich. I so appreciate you sharing your thoughts, your expertise on this topic, and I hope that for all of you that are watching, this has been helpful to you. We have a number of topics that are available to you on the Future and Hope Ministries website that we hope are helpful to you as well. And know also, these things that we're talking about here, we realize is they're easy to say and they're more difficult to learn how to do. Give yourself grace, and it sometimes can be really helpful to be working with somebody, a therapist, to help you learn how to become attuned to these inner emotions and develop your way of responding in a helpful way. And we've got a great team at the Future and Hope Ministries that are available to come alongside you in your walk. And so we'd invite you to reach out if there's any way that we can be helpful. So,
yes,
Rich, Dr. Kozar, I so appreciate your insight and your wisdom in this, and I want to say thank you very much.
Very good. Good to be with you all today, and we hope this COVID and all the problems associated with it will soon pass. But until then, we hope that we can think and act in healthy ways toward ourselves and others. But yes, Tad, good to be with everyone today.
All right.
Bye-bye.